is not someone, apparently, who works at the White House. We're going to bring you a lot more on this topic. We're going to talk to a number of people about it. We'll also talk with a former rock star, now one of the world's leading counterterrorism experts. We'll talk to him in just a minute. Also keeping an eye on Hurricane Wilma. That's expected to hit Cancun, Mexico on Friday before it turns toward the southwest coast of Florida again. This, quote, extremely dangerous Category 4 storm expected to hit landfall there sometime Sunday. We'll get a full report on exactly when and where Wilma will strike from NBC's Weather Plus meteorologist Bill Cairns later in the show. But we begin tonight, as promised, with the breaking news I mentioned just a moment ago. Here to tell us what it may mean, former Democratic Chief of Staff of the Senate Committee on Finance and an Emmy Award-winning producer of The West Wing, MSNBC political analyst Lawrence O'Donnell. Lawrence O'Donnell, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Tucker.
Now, you've been reporting on this case for a number of months now. Are you surprised by this news? A, do you believe this story that the prosecutor is planning to indict on charges not directly related to the leak itself, and that he knows the identity of the original leaker? Do you believe that?
Well, I've expected that. I've expected either perjury charges or lying to FBI agents. The FBI agents, you have to remember, were in the White House as early as October, this leak publicly having occurred in July. And it doesn't feel now like that White House was really ready for those FBI agents to come in there. And a lot of people aren't really that aware that lying to an FBI agent is a crime in and of itself. It's separate from perjury. So, and Rove, for example, clearly did not tell the FBI agents the truth. That's public information at this point.
How do we slow down. How do we know that? How do we know that he lied to the FBI?
We know, for example, that he did not tell the FBI in his first conversation with the FBI that he had a conversation with Matt Cooper about Valerie Plame. He did not include that. He actually told them that he had a conversation with Matt Cooper about welfare. Matt Cooper, under oath to the grand jury, says they did not discuss welfare.
Right. So you have an initial disagreement, and Rove goes back to the grand jury, as I understand it, corrects himself in one of his 4 appearances there and says, look, actually, I did talk to Matt Cooper about it. Can that be construed as a lie? Is that misrepresenting the truth to a federal agent?
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
Indict on that, you think?
Oh, yeah, people get grabbed on that all the time. You know, they lie to the FBI or say something that isn't true to the FBI. The prosecutors perceive that to be a willful lie. That person then comes into the grand jury and under oath either does it again or does a variation on it and says, I didn't really understand the question that time. And usually, grand juries and prosecutors don't believe that. They think if we send an FBI agent into the White House to ask Karl Rove what reporters he might have talked to about Valerie Plame, that he knows exactly who he talked to about Valerie Plame, and his memory doesn't get better. I mean, generally what prosecutors will say to you is, someone's memory doesn't get better farther away from the event.
Right.
So that's why the FBI lying is a serious problem.
I just have trouble believing the prosecutor can actually do this. That is, bring indictments for crimes or alleged crimes that aren't directly related to the original leak. I think that's going to make people, even critics of the White House, even people who are not predisposed to like Bush or his White House, are going to say, well, hold on a second here. That wasn't the original crime. These are crimes that took place after the investigation. You're going to get a kind of Martha Stewart effect, where people who don't necessarily like Martha Stewart think she was abused by the prosecutor.
If that's the charge base that comes out, Tucker, which is to say lying after the fact of the event and nothing else, you will see a long list of similar cases recited in the press where this has happened many, many, many times. It happens in tax cases. It happens constantly in the federal court. It has been a crime to lie to the FBI agents for decades. Local police departments figured out that that's actually a pretty good way to get people, and so that has become pretty much standard law throughout the country. States and local officials make it a crime to lie to their law enforcement agents.
Now, what about the kind of overarching irony in this story, which is here you have an investigation into a leak or maybe a series of leaks that itself is leaking. This investigator, this special prosecutor.
I don't think it's leaking. I don't think so.
Well, wait a second. Hold on. We have this entire New York Times piece right here, which just came online less than an hour ago, and it is filled with information only Patrick Fitzgerald and his staff could know. Now, either the Times made this up, and I doubt it.
No, that's not true. That's not true, Tucker. They could be in communication with Bob Luskin, Karl Rove's lawyer, who has been the single biggest leaker of anyone involved in this case. Bob Luskin. Almost all leaks lead to Luskin in this case since July, when I first revealed that his client was Matt Cooper's source.
What motive would Bob...
Luskin has been doing a fantastic job, Tucker, up until recently, of spinning the press away from the idea that Karl Rove would be indicted. You remember, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, no one thought Karl would be indicted.
And you were saying, possibly to your credit, we'll find out in a week or so, that he was likely to be indicted. But again,
I've never said he's going to be indicted. I believe that it is tending that way. I mean, basically, all the predictors now have basically come to where I've been for the last 6 months.
But this story, the breaking news we're reporting right now from the New York Times, what could possibly be the motive of Karl Rove or Scooter Libby's lawyer to leak this information, which is clearly damaging to their clients? I just can't imagine how this information didn't come from Fitzgerald.
This discussion is an incentive to do it. For example, what you're trying to do if you're Luskin and you're leaking this information having come to you from the prosecutor saying this is what we're thinking about doing, does Karl want to talk to us some more? They put a lot of pressure on all of these witnesses as they get down to the line on indictments. They can say to Libby's lawyer, this is what we're thinking about doing to him. Does he want to give us any more information? That's what this kind of stuff is about. Now, if you represent one of those guys, you want to provoke Tucker Carlson in exactly the way you have done. You want people on TV and in the media saying it will be an outrage if this prosecutor charges people only with perjury and only with lying to FBI agents.
That's pretty
so
clever.
You're trying to get the prosecutor not to do it.
If that is actually their strategy, that is so complex. I'm impressed.
No, it's not, Tucker. It's very simple. It's a
I don't know. I still don't buy it for a second.
I think possibly happen. You don't have to buy anything, but I'm just telling you, the worst thing that can possibly happen to Rove or Libby, the worst thing is getting indicted.
All right.
Conviction is secondary to that. They have to do anything they can to stop indictments.
The Tom DeLay factor. Lawrence O'Donnell, thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Tucker.
Coming on now to discuss the leak investigation as well as Tom DeLay's arrest earlier today. Big day for news. MSNBC contributor Flavia Colgan. Flavia.
Hello.
Thanks.
The left coast is feeling a little bit more right with you being here.
Well, thanks. I'm glad. I'm from here, so this is a return. I'm glad to be here.
Don't put that out in the ether.
No, well, this is so troubling on so many levels. I was against this investigation from day one, not because I'm a reflexive supporter of the White House. Obviously, I'm not. I just think that this is not something worth investigating. It's ridiculous, maybe because I lived in D.C. for so long. Here's my point. I think there are clearly leaks coming from Patrick Fitzgerald. We just heard a counter view that maybe they're coming from the lawyers of those being investigated.
Which I think is very cogent. We have to remember Karl Rove's the guy who bugged his own office in the governor's race. Let's not put anything.
The obvious explanation for this information is that it comes from the person who had it originally, who could only know it first, and that's the prosecutor. I'm saying in 1998, the Clinton administration, outraged by leaks from Ken Starr's office, justifiably outraged, in my view, launched a Justice Department investigation led by Janet Reno, overseen by her, into those leaks. Why isn't the Bush administration saying, wait a second, the leak investigation leaking, this is outrageous, we're going to investigate where this information is?
Well, there's a couple reasons, and one of them we talked about last week, which is Bush's own words. When he gets on the Today Show and 2 other shows and says, I think that Fitzgerald is handling himself in an upright manner, this is fantastic. Those words are going to come back together. Look, last week on this show, I said to you, I think that Rove is going to go down more on the perjury and the stuff. It's going to be for the cover-up, not for the crime itself. Now, looking forward, we'll get back to the perjury charges. Looking forward, I think the next interesting thing to look at for Fitzgerald, who likes to go after big fish, is the fact that he's been questioning the Italian authorities on the break-in into the Niger embassy. This speaks to the fact that he might be going after a conspiracy theory on the Whig group, the group of 12 people, including Libby and Rove, who, depending on your point of view, either came together so that they could deceive the public in terms of no WMD, or were a group of neocons who believed it, and when they saw Joe Wilson saying not so, they said this is ridiculous, we've got to fight back, whichever way you view it. So I think that's the next big, big fighting ground. That could be very significant.
Can I just step back 3 steps and point out how insane this is all becoming? All right? I am deeply troubled by the Iraq War. I think it was a betrayal of our trust, and I'm unalterably opposed to prosecuting it any further. Okay? So that's my position. However, these are issues that ought to be settled at the ballot box. If you don't like it, vote against the people who did it. You don't sick a special prosecutor on them. I mean, that actually is criminalizing politics. This is politics. Prosecuting war is political by nature, right? So you may not agree with the war. Then defeat the guy who did it.
Well, I think it's very troubling for two of the most powerful people. I mean, people refer to Libby and Rove as sub-cabinet or cabinet-level officials. To look at the FBI, lie about a conversation, and also, I can't find an email. Come on, Tucker.
Well, they're more powerful.
I'm sending my I'm going to send my 10-year-old brother to the White House. He'll know the search words to put in to find the email.
No, but let's be...
And sometimes what you don't say can be as duplicitous as what you do say.
Okay.
The guy has been
maybe they lied about
the FBI.
Maybe they lied about
it's
their
not
emails.
Acceptable. It's unacceptable, Tucker. Come on.
This is.
You're a man of integrity.
I have seen.
This is not appropriate.
First of all, I never claimed to be a man of integrity. Second, I've seen.
I'm claiming it for you.
I have seen this movie before, having lived in Arkansas and Washington, all throughout the Clinton saga. Okay, I've seen what happens. I know how it ends, and it ends badly for everybody. Those being indicted and investigated, for the political system itself, for every American. It's not good. When an investigator goes in, he ought to stick to the charge at hand. If he's charged with investigating a leak, he ought to investigate that leak. But to open it up into this, well, why did we go to war in Iraq in the first place? A question I'd like answered, by the way, is just beyond the scope.
But that's destructive. And first of all, I'm the last person to argue that this is somehow reserved for the Republican Party. I mean, hypocrisy, corruption, all that stuff is a bipartisan trait. There's no question about that. But that's not what this is about. This isn't about a referendum on Iraq. This is about whether it's appropriate and whether we should allow government officials to lie to federal authorities, number one, and number two, whether people should be getting together to try to deceive the American public and putting out what is fake documents, the Niger documents that were so obviously fake.
But that has, first of all,
we'll see.
That is so wrong on so many levels. I wish we had more time.
Let's see, why is Fitzgerald talking to the Italian authorities, Tucker? Why do you think? The break-in.
That document did not come from the United States government.
It came from the Niger embassy, perhaps, and that's who he's questioning right now.
It's an open question, but Patrick Fitzgerald's job is not to investigate quirks in American foreign policy. That is so beyond the scope.
Oh, no, I disagree. If you see a crime being committed or when you're investigating something else, you realize that there could be something greater, you say, just turn your eyes.
I watched this get out of control with Whitewater, and as much as I despised Bill Clinton, I was pained watching it because I thought it was just so wrong. Speaking of wrong, Tom DeLay today, arrested, fingerprinted, and photographed by this prosecutor.
Can we talk about the photograph just for 1 second before we get serious?
It was brilliant. He smiles in the photograph.
I mean, this guy looks like he's posing for a class picture, not a mugshot. Like, what? And by the way, you are the first one, and I want to agree with you. This is a great picture.
Well, yeah, because had he scowled, it would have been on every Democratic Party campaign fundraising brochure.
But I agree with you.
Ever.
You were one of the first people to come out and say, I think the way that DeLay is handling this is great. And I agree with you. Continue being who you are, which is the hammer. Continue being cocky. However, it's a double-edged sword. Because there is a tipping point, and at some point when he keeps kind of getting out there and saying, oh, this is no big deal, I'm going to do one fundraiser after the next, there is the risk that the American public can start seeing it as arrogance and flagrant
and yet, even Tom DeLay can be right about things occasionally, and in this case, he said, this is a politically motivated investigation, my enemies are after me, and I think he's right. Bob Perkins, the judge in this case, gave money to MoveOn.org. Now, you're a Democrat. Would you give money to MoveOn.org? I doubt it, because it's kind of a fringe group, frankly, and it's also a group that set out explicitly on its website to attack and undo Tom DeLay. And the judge in the case gave money to this group. He's got to recuse himself, does he not?
Okay. I think potentially he has to recuse himself, but you're so good at this, and Republicans are in general good at this. Putting up these smoke screens, does that make it right what DeLay did? It stinks.
I am not.
I just like to get your goat. I know you're against the Iraq War. You don't believe in the sailor mentality of spending like the Bush administration does. I know.
My
don't
critique
worry.
comes from the right, not from the left.
Your conservative credentials are there. Don't worry.
Right. Flavia Colgan, thank you.
Great to be here, Tucker.
Thanks. Still to come, why are the faithful losing faith in the president, and are they? We talked to best-selling author David Horowitz about a growing conservative backlash. Plus, women can tell a lot about a guy on the first date, but did you know she can peg a man as a Dukes of Hazzard watching dud just by the drink he orders? Some valuable information you can't date without. Situation return.
Imagine the car you have to drive is actually the car you want to drive. Introducing the Mercedes-Benz R-Class Grand Sports Tourer with seating for 6 and 4-wheel drive. Visit your local authorized dealer and experience it for yourself. Starting at $48,775.
Someone is saying yes instead of no to redeeming credit card miles. Find out who.
I'm on it.
No blacked out.
Brenda, you know we all say no. But I hear sometimes you say yes.
from no to no hassle with Capital One No Hassle Rewards. There are no blackout dates on any airline, anytime.
Should have worked at Capital One.
What's in your wallet?
Coming up, Northwest Airlines implements a new fee that will cause smokers to blow their stacks. Plus, the dean of a Florida university is protesting the forceful kissing of pigs, even for charity. We'll dive into a hog wild controversy when the situation returns.
Well, does your manual brush clean? Introducing Crest Spin Brush Pro Clean. It cleans up to 70% more plaque in hard-to-reach places, getting what an ordinary manual brush can leave behind. Crest Spin Brush Pro Clean.
My new grandson should always feel safe in my hands, arthritis, pain, or not. That's why I trust Advil. Even after 20 years, nothing has been proven more effective on tough pain. Not Tylenol, not Aleve.
Advil. Fast, strong, trusted.
NBA TV On Demand from Comcast is your one-stop destination for an exclusive preview of the 2005-2006 NBA season. Don't miss the in-depth analysis of all 30 NBA teams. Get the insider's perspective on all of the offseason activities. Relive the best plays from last season.
He hit that shot!
And get your fantasy basketball update with a full breakdown from the experts. Let NBA TV On Demand from Comcast bring you back to basketball. Special NBA season preview programming.
MSNBC tomorrow. Karl Rove and Scooter Libby have testified about the CIA leak. Now Chris compares exactly what they say now to what they said in their sworn statements before. Consistencies, conflicts, a word-by-word comparison on Hardball with Chris Matthews. MSNBC tomorrow at 7.
To answer your question, there's some background noise here. A lot of chatter, a lot of speculation and opining. But the American people expect me to do my job, and I'm going to.
Pretty blasé. We'll see if it's warranted. Welcome back. That was President Bush speaking earlier today during a Rose Garden appearance with Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas. The president has been taking heat from all sides this month, but especially from the right, believe it or not. Conservatives are angry about spending, immigration, the war in Iraq, some of them, and above all, the nomination of Harriet Miers to the Supreme Court. Is the White House facing a full-fledged conservative backlash? Here to tell us, a man who has spent a lifetime studying political movements and sometimes participating in them, best-selling author David Horowitz. He's the editor-in-chief of FrontPageMagazine.com and the president of the Center for the Study of Popular Culture. David Horowitz, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
So is there a full-fledged conservative backlash, and is it warranted?
I think there's been, I would call it more a message being sent to the president. There's a lot of disgruntled conservatives, and you named the issues. I think the immigration issue and the borders has been building for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think the spending issue is huge. And I think the Harriet Miers is very understandable in that, you know, starting with the borking of Bork, the left has really aggressively sought to politicize the Supreme Court. And conservatives have waited a long time. They've watched stealth candidates betray the conservative message.
That's right.
So I think that there's a lot of anger out there. I do not think it's a revolt, and I think it will tell us a lot about the next presidential election. But the conservatives are not going to desert Bush in the middle of this war.
Well, they don't have anybody else also. But what about Bush's response? The White House's response to the criticism of Harriet Miers, I think, has been really telling. The left has said for the last 5 years, this is a guy who can't handle dissent, who can't handle criticism. I've defended him time and again against that charge. But it's starting to look kind of true. He immediately goes to the lowest kind of attacks on the opponents of Miers. They're sexists. They're elitists. Here's a woman who was trying to break the glass ceiling, who was for diversity and inclusion. Every kind of left-wing trope and cliche they trot out in defense of Harriet Miers. What is that?
I think there's an issue of loyalty here, that this is an intensely loyal president.
Yes.
And this is a woman who's been very close to him for a very long time. So I think that's what you're seeing. I think there is an ineptitude which I have never understood in the Bush White House when it comes to communications. I just think they've been weak on all these issues. That is, the ducking is very telling, and I think a very bad
the people in charge of communications,
because they have tried the two silent Supreme Court nominations. You know, stealth.
Yeah.
Is very bad.
Well, what do you think of conservative intellectuals? You're definitely one. I mean, you're one of the original conservative intellectuals in this country. Don't they have an obligation to stay true to their beliefs, to their principles, over and above political parties or individual politicians?
Yeah, except for the fact, and here we're going to have a big disagreement, that we're in the midst of a war. This is the first time in American history that a major political party has defected from a war that it supported. And the Democrats voted in their majorities to authorize the use of force. We're winning this war. It's a tremendously important battle. And the president has been the target of relentless attacks, the most vicious attacks in my memory. That is, in my whole lifetime. I have never seen a
most
president.
Of them stupid, I think.
I've ever seen a president attack like this. I mean, if the opposition took your point of view, okay, we disagree with him. You know, this is the policy. The American people have ratified it. We're going to, win the next election. But the low level of politics, I mean, the lynch party for delay, the lynch party for Roe and Libby, I don't think this White House is geared up for this kind of battle.
But don't you think I understand your point, and that, you ought to see the broader picture and the long-term goals, et cetera. But isn't it the job of conservative intellectuals, one of the jobs, to kind of keep the party they generally support honest? And when they start running around calling other people sexist and saying diversity is the highest goal of American life and other patently absurd things like that.
Those are red flags, if I may say.
Well, yeah, to put it mildly, they're red flags. Shouldn't they jump up and down and say, knock it off?
I'm proud to be part of the Republican Party and movement because, one, conservatives do stand up for principle, even when it's not in their political interest. And it includes people like yourself, who obviously dissent on a major issue. I think the White House is stumbling badly here. I mean, they bought the worst of all possible scenarios. You put through a stealth candidate and you get everybody against you. That's not the idea. The idea was to slide through.
And not working. Unfortunately, I hope she turns out, to say every night, I hope she turns out better than expected.
She'd probably be a good Supreme Court justice, but conservatives deserve to have a very strong intellectual voice, something like Scalia.
And at least not to be called sexist, that's all I want. And I forgot to include in the introduction David Horowitz, author of the newly released The End of Time.
Now, this is the best book I'll ever write. It's a complete